My name is Mira Vance, and I used to believe in loyalty. Not the kind you see in movies, grand gestures, tearful reunions, but the quiet, daily kind. Showing up early, staying late, covering for teammates when they're sick or overwhelmed. I gave that kind of loyalty to Viridian Dynamics for 7 years. I coded through migraines, debugged systems on Christmas Eve, and once flew back from my grandmother's funeral just to meet a product deadline. All because I thought my work mattered. That I mattered. Turns out, I was just a line item on a spreadsheet. The day it all cracked open started like any other Tuesday. Rain tapped against the windows of my tiny Brooklyn apartment as I scrolled through my inbox, coffee cooling beside me. Then came the email, subject line, transition support and next steps. Corporate speak for you're fired. Not laid off. Not restructured. Fired. For breach of contract. Specifically, for allegedly violating my non-compete clause by speaking to a recruiter from a rival firm. I hadn't spoken to any recruiter. My stomach dropped like a stone in water. I reread the email 3 times, my fingers trembling. Attached was a scanned copy of my termination letter, signed by none other than Daniel Rourke, Viridian's CTO and, until last month, my mentor. The man who'd once told me over whiskey at a team off-site, "Mira, you're the future of this company." Now he was tossing me out like yesterday's trash, with no warning, no conversation, just a cold, digital shove into the gutter. I called HR, got voicemail. Tried Daniel directly, blocked. That's when the anger came, sharp and clean, slicing through the shock. But beneath it, something else stirred, curiosity. Because I knew I hadn't broken that non-compete. And if they were accusing me of something I didn't do, someone was lying. So I smiled, not a happy smile. Not even a bitter one. It was the kind of smile you give when you realize the game's just begun, and you've been handed the first clue. I opened my laptop and logged into my personal cloud archive. Over the years, I backed up everything. Project specs, meeting notes, Slack logs. Yes, I saved them. Call it paranoia, call it preparation. Viridian security was tight, but not tight enough to stop someone who'd helped build half their infrastructure. I'd coded the very systems they used to track employee activity, and I'd left myself a few backdoors. Not for sabotage, just for peace of mind. Insurance. What I found in the next hour made my blood run colder than that forgotten coffee. Buried in an old internal audit log, timestamp 3 weeks before my firing, was a record of Daniel accessing my personnel file. Not unusual, except for the timing. Then I cross-referenced it with server logs from our HR platform. Someone had altered the metadata on my non-compete agreement, changed the effective date, expanded the scope, made it look like I'd signed a stricter version than I actually had. But here's the kicker, the digital signature on that altered document. It wasn't mine. It was a forgery, clumsy, if you knew what to look for. The stroke pressure was off. The timestamp didn't align with my login history. And the IP address used to upload it traced back to Daniel's home office. He hadn't just accused me of breaking the non-compete. He fabricated the evidence to make it look like I had. Why? I dug deeper. Scrolled through financial reports, board meeting minutes I shouldn't have access to, but did, thanks to a permissions loophole I'd reported, and they'd ignored. That's when I saw it. Viridian was preparing for acquisition. A big one. Tech giant called Nexera was circling, and they loved clean acquisitions, no messy employee disputes, no pending lawsuits, no talent walking out the door with proprietary knowledge. And I knew something they didn't want out. 6 months ago, I discovered a flaw in Viridian's flagship AI platform, Project Ether. Not a bug, a design flaw, one that could leak user data under specific conditions. I'd flagged it in a confidential report, sent it straight to Daniel. He'd thanked me, promised to escalate it, but nothing happened. The product launched anyway. Millions of users, billions in valuation. If that flaw went public now, during acquisition talks, Nexera would walk. Share prices would plummet. And Daniel, he'd be the golden boy who delivered a flawless product right up until the moment it all collapsed. Unless someone took the fall first. Me. I wasn't just fired for breaking a non-compete. I was being framed to protect a lie that could tank the company and Daniel's career. The rain had stopped. Sunlight cut through the clouds, glinting off the wet fire escapes outside. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding not with fear, but with something fiercer. Purpose. They thought I'd disappear. Sign the severance, shut up, move on. Maybe take a job at some startup, bitter but broken. But I built systems that held up under pressure. I debugged chaos into order. And now I had a new system to debug, the one built on lies. I opened a new browser window. Not to job boards. Not to LinkedIn. To a secure messaging app one hadn't used in years. Typed a single name, Lena Cho. Lena was a tech journalist at the Clarion. Sharp, relentless, and most importantly, she owed me. 2 years ago, I'd anonymously tipped her off about a data breach at a major social media company. She'd broken the story, won awards, and never knew who her source was. Until now. I attached 3 files, the forged non-compete, the server logs showing Daniel's access, and a redacted snippet of my original Etherflaw report. No message. Just the files and a single line. They're lying. And it's worse than you think. I hit send. Then I turned off my work laptop for the last time. Packed a go bag, passport, cash, encrypted drive, change of clothes. Not because I was running, but because I needed to move fast and I couldn't afford to be tracked. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mira. A woman's voice, crisp, familiar. Lena. You sent me a ghost, she said. Care to tell me why it's wearing your fingerprints? I didn't send a ghost, I said, zipping the bag shut. I sent a body. And it's got a name. Daniel Rourke, she said, reading my mind. Viridian's golden boy. You're accusing him of forging documents and covering up a critical security flaw. Worse, I said, stepping out into the hallway. He's using me as a shield. And if he gets away with it, millions of people could be at risk. Silence on the line. Then, meet me. 1 hour. The old clock tower in Hudson Yards. Bring everything. I can't, I said. Not yet. They're watching my apartment. My phone. Maybe even this call. Then how do I know you're not setting me up? She asked, voice tight. Because, I said, pausing at the stairwell door. If I wanted to burn you, I wouldn't have redacted the user data in that report. I'd have given you the full leak. And you'd be the one getting sued into oblivion. Another pause. Longer this time. All right, she said finally. But if this is a trap. It's not, I cut in. It's a reckoning. I hung up before she could respond. Outside, the city hummed. Taxis honking. Delivery bikes weaving through traffic, the distant wail of a siren. Normal life. But I wasn't in it anymore. I was in the cracks now. The spaces between the lines of code, the silences between corporate lies. I walked toward the subway, head down, hood up. My reflection in a store window looked different. Not scared. Not angry. Focused. Like I was finally seeing the board clearly, not as a pawn, but as a player. Daniel thought he'd checkmated me with that non-compete, smiled while he signed my death warrant in the corporate world. But he forgot one thing. I wrote the rules of this game. And I knew where all the hidden pieces were. The train arrived, doors hissing open. I stepped inside, blending into the crowd. No one looked twice at the woman in the gray hoodie, eyes fixed on the floor. Just another commuter. Just another ghost. But ghosts don't smile when they're cornered. Ghosts smile when they're about to haunt you. And I had a whole company to haunt. I pulled out my burner phone. Untraceable, prepaid, bought with cash from a bodega in Queens. Dialed a number I'd memorized years ago, back when Viridian was still a dream in a garage, and Daniel used to buy me coffee after all-nighters. Ravi, I said when he answered. It's Mira. Remember that failsafe we built into Ether? The one Daniel told us to delete. A beat of silence. Then low and wary. Yeah. Why? Because I need you to turn it on. Ravi had been my teammate, my friend. He'd left Viridian 6 months ago after clashing with Daniel over the Ether launch. Said he couldn't sleep knowing what they were shipping. Last I heard, he was consulting for a privacy nonprofit in Portland. You're playing with fire, Mira, he said now. That failsafe logs every data anomaly. If it's active during an acquisition audit. Exactly, I said. Let them see the truth. You'll get sued. Again. Or worse. Worse than being erased. I asked. Worse than watching them lie to millions of users while pinning it on me? He exhaled sharply. Where are you? Safe. For now. But I need your help. Not just with the failsafe. With something bigger. What? The original Ether code. The clean version. Before Daniel's team cut corners. You kept it. I backed it up the night before launch. Called it Ether_Pure. Stored it on a drive disguised as a power bank. It's been in my desk drawer this whole time. Ravi was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're not just exposing him, are you? You're replacing him. I'm fixing what he broke, I said. And making sure no one else has to choose between their conscience and their career. Another pause. Then, a sigh that sounded almost like relief. All right. Send me the coordinates for that drive. I'll have someone retrieve it tonight. No, I said. I'll bring it to you. In person. Mira. I trust you, Ravi. But I don't trust anyone else right now. Not even your team. Not until I see your face. He didn't argue. Just gave me an address in Jersey City. a co-working space he used for off-grid projects. "Midnight," he said. "And Mira, come armed." I smiled again. "Always." The train lurched to a stop. I got off, not at my usual station, but 2 stops early. Walked the rest of the way, weaving through side streets, doubling back twice to shake any tails. Paranoia? Maybe. But after what Daniel pulled, I wasn't taking chances. Back in my apartment, empty now, lights off, I sat in the dark and thought about the last 7 years. The late nights, the breakthroughs, the moments I thought I was building something good, something that mattered. Turns out I was. Just not the way I thought. I wasn't building Viridian. I was building the truth. And now, it was time to deploy it. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Lena. "Clock towers crawling with suits. Not ours. Yours." I typed back. "Told you they were watching. Change of plans. Meet me at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Pier 6. 9 p.m. Come alone." She replied instantly. "You're either brave or stupid." I smiled. "Let's find out together." I packed the power bank drive into a false-bottomed book, The Art of War. Fitting. Slipped it into my bag. Checked the charge on my burner. Made sure my emergency cache was tucked in my shoe. Then I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. Somewhere out there, Daniel was probably celebrating. Toasting his clean exit, his flawless acquisition, his perfect lie. He didn't know I was still in the game. He didn't know I'd already moved my queen. And he definitely didn't know that the non-compete he'd used to cage me, it was never the real trap. The real trap was his own arrogance. I stepped out into the night, ready to spring it. The Brooklyn Navy Yard at night was all shadows and salt air, wind off the East River sharp with the tang of rust and old ships. I stood near the edge of Pier 6, but still up, eyes scanning the skeletal cranes against the blue sky. 9 o'clock on the dot. No Lena. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Just as I was about to leave, headlights cut through the fog, slow, cautious. A beat-up Honda Civic rolled to a stop 50 yards away. The door opened. Lena stepped out, trench coat flapping, phone in hand. She didn't approach. Just stood there, watching me like I might detonate. I raised my hands, empty. No tricks. Just truth. She walked forward, stopping 10 feet away. "You're making me paranoid, Vance." "Good," I said. "Means you're paying attention." She crossed her arms. "So, Daniel Rourke forged your non-compete, covered up a critical flaw in Viridian's AI, and framed you to protect a billion-dollar acquisition. That about cover it?" "With receipts," I said, pulling the Art of War book from my bag. I opened it, removed the drive, and held it out. "This is Ether_Pure, the version that doesn't leak user data. And on here, I tapped my burner, our logs proving Daniel altered HR records, faked my signature, and suppressed my original security report. Lena didn't take the drive. Why me? Why not go straight to the SEC? Or Nexra's legal team? "Because if I go public too soon, they'll bury it," I said. "Spin it as disgruntled ex-employee slander. But if you break it, with your track record, they can't ignore it. And if we time it right, I let the sentence hang." "When?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "The night before the acquisition closes. Nexra's due diligence team runs their final audit. That's when Ravi triggers the failsafe. It'll flag every anomaly in real time, show them Ether's bleeding data. And when they panic and dig deeper, they'll find Daniel's cover-up and my clean version waiting like a life raft." She stared at me. "You're not just exposing him. You're giving them a way out. A way to salvage the deal without him." "Exactly," I said. "Nexra wants a functional AI platform, not a scandal. They'll cut Daniel loose to save face. And Viridian's engineers, the ones who actually care, will get to fix what he broke." Lena finally took the drive, slipped it into her coat pocket like it was radioactive. "You realize if this goes sideways, you'll be sued into oblivion. Or worse." "I've already been erased once," I said. "What's left to lose?" She studied me for a long moment. Then, almost reluctantly, "You're not like the others. Most whistleblowers want revenge. You want repair. I want accountability," I corrected. "And maybe a little justice." She nodded, turned to leave, then paused. "One condition." "Name it." "If this works, if we bring him down, you don't vanish. You testify. Publicly. Let people see the face behind the fix." I thought about it. The spotlight. The depositions. The headlines. But also the message. That you don't have to stay silent to survive. That truth, carefully wielded, can rebuild as much as it destroys. "Deal," I said. 2 weeks later, the storm broke. It started quietly, a single line in the Clarion's tech section. Viridian Dynamics under scrutiny amid AI security concerns. By noon, it was trending. By evening, Nexera had frozen the acquisition. By midnight, Daniel Rourke had resigned to pursue other opportunities, though insiders whispered he'd been escorted out by security. The failsafe worked perfectly. During Nexera's final audit, Ether_Pure's anomaly logs lit up like a Christmas tree, except instead of hiding the flaw, they exposed it with surgical precision. And there, waiting in a secure repository Ravi had set up, was the clean code. A full, functional, ethical alternative. Nexera didn't walk away. They pivoted, announced a partnership with an independent ethics board, hired half of Viridian's original engineering team, including Ravi, to rebuild Ether from the ground up, and they publicly credited an anonymous source for preserving user integrity. I watched it all from a cafe in Montreal, under a new name, sipping bitter coffee. My face hadn't been in the news. Not yet, but Lena kept her word. She published a follow-up piece titled The Ghost Who Fixed the Machine, and though she never named me, she quoted something I told her that night on the pier. Loyalty shouldn't be a leash. It should be a promise both ways. 3 months after that, I got a call. It was the U.S. Department of Justice. They wanted to talk. Not as a suspect. As a witness. And maybe, if I was willing, as an advisor on a new federal task force for AI accountability. I said yes. Not for the glory. Not even for the vindication. But because I finally understood, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's creation. It's building something so honest, so resilient, that the lies can't touch it. 6 months after that, I stood in front of a Senate subcommittee, no hood, no alias, just Mira Vance, former Viridian engineer, current advocate, and living proof that you can be erased and still leave a mark. Daniel never faced criminal charges. Corporate law is a maze, and he had expensive lawyers. But his reputation, that was gone. No board would touch him. No VC would fund him. He tried to bury the truth, but the truth had roots. And I was planting new ones. Now, when young engineers ask me how to survive in a world that rewards silence, I tell them, don't just code the system. Code the conscience into it. And if they try to fire you for it, smile. Because that's when you know you've found the leverage. I still smile sometimes. When I see Ether_Pure powering hospitals, protecting privacy, doing the quiet, daily good I always believed tech could do. And every time I do, I think of that rainy Tuesday morning. The email. The lie. The moment I chose not to disappear. She smiled at the non-compete, then exposed the CTO's lie. But the real victory wasn't in the exposure. It was in what came after.